Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about coding practices and a few things that I think we need to touch on a little bit. So let's get into it. Now, there has been a few people who have mentioned different and various things on some of my coding videos when I write software. Now, these people have a fairly junior profile. At least it seems that way. I'm not saying any this or that about it. It just seems that way. And they're looking for, examples of how to write software and all that good stuff. And I think that's very flattering. It's very, very flattering that people, look to my way of writing things or building things and think that, oh, this is the way that I should do it. But that's the thing I want to touch on a little bit here. Guys, the way that I write software is not necessarily the way that you should prioritize your own software or the way that you should structure your own software. I'm just here to show you a way to do things. That doesn't mean that you should just copy paste the way that I do things or anything of that nature. And just let me walk you through it. So when I do certain things, I do it for various reasons based on my personal experiences. And one of those personal experiences that you need to account for yourself is that when it comes to coding styles and coding practices, it's the mindset that you should go for, which is, I think, the healthy one, is to have a little bit of flexibility and not get too in love or fall too much in love with a certain way of doing things. The way that I can describe it is that if you are what I like to call a code diva, and you believe that things should be written in a certain way and be done in a certain way and so forth, you will very quickly find that not everybody agrees with you. Not everybody has the same opinion about things. And if you want to be effective at working in a group or as a part of a IT or like a software development team or something like that, you need to be flexible enough to actually just adjust the way that you solve problems and do things a certain way. I do that as well. When you watch one of my videos and I get to write software in any way I like, I try to remember how I write it at work and how I know most generally certain people in the industry write software. But sometimes I kind of fall into my own traps. And that's what I want you to avoid. I want you to not think of, when I show you some software, I don't want you to, how do I put this, to just start writing software in that exact manner. Because I'm not trying to show you how to write the style of software that you should write. I'm trying to show you solutions, and I'm trying to show you examples of problems and considerations and that sort of thing. But I'm not here to show you how to write. So if a great example is that in a few of my videos, you'll see that, or rather you will probably see quite often that I use Require, like CommonJS modules, instead of ES6 modules, which is super popular these days. It's actually so popular that ES6 imports they're basically, at this point, they're so common that I would almost call them an industry standard. Using something like Babel to do the transpiling and all that stuff it's the norm for the most part. Now, I personally, as an individual, don't like that. That's just my personal opinion, and that's only because I've had quite a few problems dealing with the sort of issues that comes with transpilation and the inflexibility of these things. So I personally, when I write my own personal project, use Requires, because I have good experiences of using that. But that doesn't mean that just because I do it, that you should do that too, or that you should go to your job now and sit and say, hey, this guy, this random person from Gothenburg on the internet has told everybody that you should use requires instead of imports. Because that's not what I'm telling you guys. I'm saying that if your company is already using ES6 imports and stuff of that nature, then you should kind of go with the flow there. Unless it's, you can always have a discussion about it, but you shouldn't take what I show you as the rule of the industry. Some things are very common, and I will tell you that these things are common, but for the most part, think of it as me just showing you a way to do it and motivating a little bit why I do it that way. But that doesn't mean that it's the only way, and it doesn't even have to mean that it's the right way. I might change some of my practices tomorrow, and I might not even make a video about it. So remember that. So what I want you to take away from this is that when you, and this is true for quite a lot of content providers and bloggers and so forth, when you watch somebody else write software and so forth, pick away the pieces that make sense to you, and don't try to necessarily copy the way that somebody writes their software, but rather look at it as an influence, an inspiration, and pick away the things that make sense to you. Because I'm not trying to make, for me, as an example, I'm not trying to make you code the way that I code. I'm trying to teach you the things you need in order to find your own style of coding. That's basically how, at least I think about it, and hopefully the skills that you will acquire will teach you to write software both in your own preferences, because you will develop your own preferences sooner or later in how you want to do things, but you also need to have that ability to detach yourself and say, all right, this is the way that I like to do things, but at this company, at this specific project, we have agreed on doing things this way, and I am flexible enough to accommodate that. That's the sort of person you want to be. Have a great day.